Hello, I'm David Hamilton and welcome to the final edition of Wise Words. Today we're going to be talking about friendship with my new friends, Erin and Rory. Lovely to see you both. I'd like you to tell us about a long-term friendship that's meant a lot to you.
Yes, I mean, I've got quite a lot of friends I've known since childhood, but one particular friend is Jean and Gordon, high up there in Aberdeenshire, and their family. Jean, nearly 42 years ago, I gave birth to very, very premature triplets, the most premature triplets they'd saved in this country at the time. And the same weekend, a set of twins were born very prematurely in Aberdeen. And those twins were sent down to London, or one of them was, and we became friends, the parents and us. And we've been friends ever since, because those 5 little girls born that weekend should not have survived, let alone survived long enough to have the wonderful lives they've had. And Jean and Gordon have been there for us through ups and downs of raising families, as everyone has, right the way through. And earlier this year, we all met up in Aberdeen. I made sure I was available to go up and see them. And
we're quite a long way apart.
Yes.
So how often do you manage to see each other, for example, once a year perhaps? Or?
No, not even that.
No.
Not even that. But social media is very good for helping with that. We saw each other a lot more when the children were younger because they would be going to London for checkups, etc. But then we saw a few times over their growing up years. And then when social media came in, we got closer again. And then in the latter years, we've seen them, I think, 2 or 3 times in the last few years. This year, when we got to see both of the girls, both of these grown-up twins now, who are both fantastic women.
Lovely. Rory, how about you? How about a long-term friendship that you've had?
Yes, well, I do have a very, very old friend, going right back to my teenager days. And believe it or not, his sister, his name's Anthony, and his sister, Anne-Marie, is the mother of my son. Silence, but it is.
Yes,
it is
the penny's dropping.
story.
Yes,
a lovely friend, and we're still friends. We still meet up once every fortnight or so and have a beer together. And talking about really old friends, I did have a very old friend, a really good friend at my boarding school, but we hadn't seen each other since boarding school, so that's going back 50 years ago. And I wondered if we could still be friends, and I did get in touch with him. I did actually use social media for that one, and we did get in touch, and we met up last year, and there was still a little bit of magic and friendship between us.
It is possible, isn't it, to reconnect with somebody you haven't seen for a long time, and that is possible they don't want to know.
Well, that did happen as well. I got in touch with somebody else and said, "Oh, look, I've just received your email from so-and-so, from a friend, and it would be lovely to meet up. We haven't seen each other for 40 years or so, and we were friends. We were at college again together, and he wasn't interested. He didn't want to meet me, and that was quite hurtful, but I could understand he might have changed, moved on, but there was something that said no."
Sometimes people like to forget the past. I mean, I think it's as simple as that. But when it's right and when it goes well, it's lovely, isn't it, to get together with old friends and talk about the good old days.
Yes, definitely.
I'm one of a bunch of women of the same age, roughly, who worked together 45 years ago, 50 years ago. And we have a little group on social media, and we try to get together and meet up. And when we're together, it's like that 50 years is gone. You know, that there's no having to put on airs or make explanations about anything. It's just as if we'd seen each other the weeks before, which is lovely. That sort of connection, that's a feeling of being relaxed and of not having to be anything that you're not.
Social media has made it so much easier, hasn't it, to do all of this? I mean, there was a time when it would be very difficult to track down where people were, but with social media, all things are possible now.
Yes, but you know, with social media, they all seem to have what they call friends, don't they? You know, they say, "Oh, I've got 300 friends," and they've only seen this person online, and they seem to become friends with these people.
Yes.
But they're not friends,
No.
most of them.
No, I agree with you there, and there are people who harvest other people's friends on social media, which I find very strange. But interestingly, I think sometimes I've connected with somebody on social media on a group about a subject and built up quite a relationship with them. And I suppose in a way it's a modern day pen pal situation.
Yes, yes.
But
yes.
I wouldn't say I'd be inviting them for Christmas lunch.
No, or
But I'd be pleased to see them.
you would
yes.
meet up with them, yes.
Well,
and say,
maybe. Who
Yes,
knows?
maybe.
Who knows? But it's it's the equivalent of a pen pal, I suppose.
yes, that's
in that
good,
way.
Yes.
Do you think that women want to reconnect with old friends more than men do?
Yes, I think they do. I think they're much better at networking too. They keep a lot more friends. This is just my opinion.
Yes.
They have a lot more friends than
I think they do.
agree?
Judging by my wife, I mean, she loves to go every year to a nurses' reunion. Very good career move, wasn't it? Marrying a nurse
Yes.
in your later life comes in very handy.
Yes.
That I didn't think when I first met her she was an aerobics teacher, so I had something completely different in mind from having a carer. But I can look forward to having a carer in later life. But she loves to go to her nurses' reunion.
Yes.
And I think there's another one that she goes to as well. Of course, school reunions.
Still goes back
Again,
to her school friends.
Yeah,
Gosh.
keeping in touch with old school
Yes.
friends.
Yes.
Yep.
My partner's a doctor's daughter, so she knows quite a lot about health and things.
What would you say to people who say that they're a little bit shy about, getting in touch with people and a little bit nervous about it and worried that it may go wrong? I mean, in your case, Rory, it did once,
go
but
wrong.
nothing lost, is there?
No, his loss, as I say. I
Yes.
mean, it would have been lovely to meet up. And
Yeah.
we spent 3 years together.
But should people have the courage to go ahead and say, let's go for it? And you only live once. Let's try and, rekindle old friendships if we can.
I think, yes, if it's old friendships, of course, you've got to be careful about what sort of friendships they were and what complications might arise from that, no matter how old you are.
Yes.
But I think, yes, absolutely go for it. And I think social media is very good for that. But I think if you are nervous, then I think, a sort of gentle message first off, to test the waters. Just to see if they're interested in meeting up.
Let me ask
and
you-
if they don't, then try and let it go.
Yeah, let me ask you both this. What is the greatest lesson that you've learnt from maintaining friendships?
People are more important than things.
Well,
Absolutely.
a good friend, you only need maybe 3 or 4 good friends.
Yes.
And when you have a good friend and they stick by you, whether it's a male friend or a female friend, I've got a couple of really nice female friends as well, and they've always just been friends.
Yes.
And they're great. It's great to have a female friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good female.
Yeah, I mean, in older life, it's great to have companionship, isn't it? I mean, you don't want to be on your own, so to have some pals that you can see from time to time is gold
Very
dust.
important.
Gold dust, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a few girlfriends, and we often sort of have this thing that if we're left single in our elder years for any awful reason, that we live in a sort of commune, and all have this house together, and obviously have people who come and do the housework and things. We won't be doing that, so we have that thought. I have one friend who comes over from Canada, and when she arrives, my husband knows that we will spend the 24, 48 hours sitting on the sofas, talking and laughing the entire time. So he just sets himself in the kitchen of feeding us, providing us with drinks, checking that everything's okay, and just lets us get on with it. And it's just a joy. It's just an absolute joy. We laugh and laugh and laugh.
Do you have a best friend? Do you have somebody that you say, she's my bestie, or he's my bestie? Do you have a best friend?
It is my husband.
Yeah,
It is
that's
my
good
husband.
if you're best friends at
Yeah.
home. Rory, do you have a best pal?
A real bestie.
Your
a real
girlfriend?
bestie. My dear partner, she should be my bestie. She's not quite my bestie, but we love each other. But I'd have to think about a bestie. I'm a bit of a loner at times too. I quite like my own company. But
One of the things that's tough is when you lose your friends.
yes.
And that's something that we have to. I mean, if you live to a ripe old age, like I am, an awful lot of your friends sadly have gone, and there are too many funerals. I mean, it's something you have to come to terms with.
course.
One of my dearest friends is Pete Murray, who was my mentor and the reason that I came into broadcasting, and he is now 99. Isn't that fantastic?
That is good. What
Yeah,
a wonderful
and I did
age.
a radio show with him a couple of years ago, and he's as bright as a button. His retention is absolutely fantastic. So this is a dear, my hero became my friend. Isn't that lovely?
Yes, yes.
And he's coming up to his 100. Not many men, not many women do that, but even less men do that, do they?
Fantastic.
That's a fantastic age, isn't it? And he's now succumbed to having a carer. And he has a few carers, but he's got a favourite carer. And he told me, he said that she was a stewardess. She gave up flying and she became a carer in later life.
Wow.
And he said, I really look forward to seeing her. I speak to him on the phone just about every week. And I spoke to him recently and I said, how's your favourite carer, Pete? He said, bad news, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
She's gone back to flying. So I said, oh dear. He said, she's still going to come and see me though. Isn't that lovely?
Yes.
And I said to him, I think, Pete, I said, I think she's, taken a fancy to you. So he said, I think she's probably taken a fancy to my house.
Does he live in London? Yes.
He lives in Wimbledon, very close to the tennis courts. But that's an amazing age, isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it? Yes.
99, yeah. And we have a great friendship,
Yes.
We talk to each other regularly. And that's another thing is with friendships that you can have with colleagues, people that
Yes.
you've worked with. And you find that you love getting back together, people that you've worked with and seeing them again.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
absolutely, absolutely. It's a joy. I think, one of my neighbours said to me recently, we were waiting for a new neighbour to move in between us, into the house in between, and we were like, what are we going to get, type of thing. And she said, but most people are nice. And that's true. Most people are nice.
And
in fact, the new
neighbours.
neighbours are lovely, actually. We've been
Neighbours,
blessed.
neighbours are important. You have to try and be friendly with your neighbours.
That's not always easy.
No. I knew people in a block of flats where I live. They'd been in the flats for at least 30, 40 years and they'd never spoken to each other.
Yes.
Now, when I moved into a block of flats 20 years ago, the neighbour asked me to supper that night.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was an extraordinary gesture. She said, do come and have supper with us and welcome to the community.
I think you're lucky because sometimes neighbours can be very difficult. You have arguments about boundaries and things like that. But let me ask you, we're coming towards the end of the show. How do you maintain friendships? They need nurturing, don't they? They don't just happen. You have to work on it. So both of you, what are your keys to maintaining friendships?
As I've said, I use social media and I find that's a really good way of just keeping in touch and seeing what's happening in people's lives. I try to, because nobody's memory is as good as it was. A lot of my friends are going through difficult times and, I've got friends who are moving, downsizing, who are widowed, is I make a point of putting in my electronic diary to ring them, or if they're having a hospital appointment, or if there's something's happening, and to remind me to contact them, to send them a message, to keep in touch. And I try to do that just to remind them that I'm thinking of them.
I'll tell you another lovely thing is remembering birthdays.
Yes.
And sending people birthday cards every year.
Yes.
And that means a lot to them.
Yes.
And Rory, what's your key to maintaining friendships?
Well, I think never to expect too much of them because one can start to, treat them like family and treat them like brothers or sisters and expect perhaps too much. But I agree with you. Make sure you remember their birthday.
Yes.
I have a great friend again, and on his birthday, I always give him, and he does the same to me, I give him a bottle of malt whiskey.
I'm sure that goes down really well.
Goes down very well with both of us.
Yes.
And then we sit there and drink half of it. But I'm serious. He loves his whiskey. He lives in Saltdean, and he is a great friend. Even thinking about him now makes me,
Do you think with friends it helps if you've got something in common? I mean, if you have shared hobbies or interests, or maybe even work, you make a lot of friends through work.
Yes.
Do you think that helps
Yes,
with
yes.
friendships?
I think certainly if you've got a connection of some sort, be it, your parents at the school gate picking up your 5-year-olds, or you're like we were, parents with 6 children, or your people working together, then that's the beginning connection. And then from that builds on other things that you have in common, or shared sense of humour, shared interests, etc. And it builds on from there. I
I think children is a very good point that you've made. I think an awful lot of people become friends at the school gates, and that's a friendship
Yes.
that in many cases goes on. Can you think of other situations which are typical of how you make friends? Situations where people are thrown together. I mean, work is an obvious one, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
You obviously don't always get on with people at work. We know that, but sometimes you do, and great friendships are made through that. And this, as we mentioned, the school
And families, sometimes you become great friends with the brother or sister of somebody you know very well and you didn't know them or her. And you can become great friends with maybe somebody you've met at a wedding or a christening. Somehow friends materialize when you least expect it.
Yes.
Yes.
But you're right about work. I think so many friendships come from colleagues at work.
I think also, churches, religious organisations,
Yes,
things like
yes,
that are often very good ways you make friends. I know my daughter has fantastic friends from her church, and I've seen
charity work
and
as well.
charity work, yes. And dog walking and getting the same train every morning, or queuing in the same shop in the olden days for your child benefits or your
Yes.
pension. All of those things, we made more friends probably in our road during lockdown than we had beforehand.
Interesting.
Even when we were being, separated.
Yes.
Just from the connection with our neighbour. We have fantastic neighbours, but one next door who works with the paramedics, and my goodness, they had a tough time.
Yeah.
And when we couldn't get pasta in the shop, so you couldn't get toilet rolls, we'd be in. I'd say, I found pasta. I'll get 2 packets, and I've got toilet rolls, and we'd do a bit of that for each other.
Well,
There's a lovely saying, there's no such thing as strangers, just friends you haven't met.
lovely. And on that note, I think we'll finish. I must say that we've all been thrown together, but I'd like to think that we'll be friends and that we'll meet
I
up
hope
again
so.
after this.
Been great
So thanks once again to Erin and to Rory. Thanks to you for watching, and in particular, thanks to our friends from Parsley Box who put the whole thing together. Thank you.